Welcome to this Considered Opinions podcast.
I'm Dougal.
And I'm Celia. Thank you for joining us.
There's a Rolling Stones song that goes, "You can't always get what you want, but try sometimes, you might find you get what you need."
It's so true. The idea that we will live the dream and always get where we'd planned to go, I think causes a lot of disappointment in our culture, because there's a huge amount of feeling if you don't end up where you had planned to go, that you're a failure. But I think that actually, if we change our attitude, we change our picture, it'll revolutionize how we view our lives.
Well, when I was 5, I was going to be an All Black.
When I was 5, I was going to be a tourist.
Oh, that's a really good plan, that one.
I was very cross when everybody laughed at me. But more seriously, change your picture, change your life. We have to live a life that's full and that we enjoy and that we accept.
So, what does that mean? Are you talking about accepting mediocrity, or are you talking about giving up on your dreams? What do you mean by change your picture, change your...
Well, I think nobody's life turns out perfect. And if we focus on how things haven't turned out how we thought or planned or imagined, then we become very disgruntled, we become dissatisfied with how things are. And that which we focus on will fill our vision. You know how when you look at something and you think, that's really beautiful, I'm going to take a photograph of that. And you take a photograph and you look at and you go, I actually didn't notice all of this rubbish all around the side of it.
There's a great stonking power pole in the middle of the photo.
Yes, basically.
Yeah.
And we filter it out because we were so busy focused on this particular thing.
So we can actually, our brain is very good at blocking out the things we don't want to see, so we can see just the beautiful thing if we want to, if we choose to.
Well, it's a case of our brain is very good at filtering out that which we're not focusing. That if we focus on the negative things in our life, or the things where things haven't turned out, or the problems that we might face, that will become our whole life.
So an example there of focusing on the negative, we've recently been going through teaching one of our offspring to drive, and one of the things we've really had to focus on teaching him was go for the gap. You don't focus on the hazard. You don't look at the ditch on the side of the road, or you might end up in the ditch on the end of the road. You don't focus on the centre line because you might cross the centre line. You have to go for the gap. So if you were focusing on the ditch, that would be focusing on the negative, and the risk is you end up in the ditch.
Exactly. So we can choose. There's all sorts of good things that are going on in everybody's life all the time. And we can choose to really embrace that and to really keep that front and center in our lives and our thoughts. And for example, what's been happening in the UK with all the riots recently, and we can really focus on that and think the world's going to hell in a handbasket, and actually there's nothing we can do about what's going on in the UK.
Yeah, we're on the other side of the world. What can we do?
We can focus on the people around us, our family, our community, and the impact and influence that we're having in their lives and in that situation.
And we're not saying don't be aware of what's happening, but don't let it be the focus.
Well,
you can be aware and it can be on the periphery, but your focus always has to be, what you can influence yourself, the 6 inches in front of your face.
Exactly. And you're aware when you're driving, you're aware of the ditch and you're aware of the centre line, but your focus is on where you're going.
Yeah.
And so when we have that shift from focusing on our lives not turning out how we planned, or the negativity in the world around us, or feeling like nobody's ever listening to us ever, when we focus on those things, they become bigger. They become all consuming in our lives. And when we change our picture, when we change our focus, when we change the story that we're telling ourselves, our lives will be transformed.
Yeah. So what we don't want is, well, what ends up happening is that we become that which we behold, or that which we listen to. And so therefore we're wanting to make sure that anything we're listening to or watching, or at least the majority of it,
I think the majority is a good...
is edifying and uplifting.
Yes. Also, the way we view things and the attitude that we have, we can choose our attitude. That's the one thing that we are in control of.
Yes.
We do have freedom with our attitude. So we can choose an attitude of gratitude. Thankfulness for all of the good things that we've got around us is actually hugely important for mental health.
Well, one of my favourite sayings of the past wee while has been, you can live like a king if you're prepared to do the work. But I've kind of added to it just of recent by saying, but to live like a king, you have to notice it. So you can have everything lovely around you, but be focused on the fact that
You stubbed your toe.
Or you chipped a glass, instead of the fact that you've got a lovely sideboard and glasses or whatever, or that you've got a lovely view out your window.
It could even be bigger. It could be you have everything lovely around you and you're still focused on the fact that you don't drive a Ferrari.
Yes. Well, that is like some stories, some old Russian folk tales that the kids were listening to recently, and there was one story of a fisherman and his wife, and the fisherman caught a sturgeon that was magical and was able to grant wishes, and they kept on getting a bigger house, a nicer house, but every time they got a bigger, nicer house, they were never satisfied.
There was always something better waiting, that they didn't have. And I think that comes to the whole quote that you hear often is, there are two ways to be satisfied. One is to continue to get more and more, and one is to be content with less.
Yes.
And that is the attitude. Our attitude to things really dictates how we experience the world.
Yes.
And that's the thing that we can control.
Yes.
So the wider culture tells us that we have to have X, Y, Z in order to be happy or to be valuable or to have made it.
Yes.
And if we focus on what's going on and what other people think of us, we lose sight of the inherent value in our own lives.
Yes. What you're saying there is actually very countercultural. I mean, a lot of what we're told, whether it be through the media, whether it be through our colleagues, advertising, whatever, is really to get more and more stuff, and that's going to make you happier. Do more adventures, go on holidays and be busy and spend money, and that will make you happy and fulfilled and give you meaning. And then we can't achieve it, so we then feel thwarted, and so we then start to feel sad and depressed, and then we wonder why we have a lot of anxiety in our society, and a lot of people are feeling very unhappy. I mean, Matthias Desmek talks about free-floating anxiety. Everyone feels a little bit anxious, but they don't know why. This could be part of the cause of it. It is that we're aiming for things or objectives that other people want us to focus on, instead of what is actually really resonating with what we actually want.
Well, it reminds me of a story about this lady. She used to be an academic, and there was aspects of it that she really enjoyed, the research and the writing, but most of it she didn't enjoy, particularly the competitive, always worrying, clawing your way up, jostling, so many people jostling for the few positions. And she ended up having a stroke, and it meant that she needed to change the direction of her career. And now she's doing a job that's not necessarily what she had planned in her life, but is something that she has become very content and satisfied with.
That's a really good example, because it kind of relates back to that Rolling Stones quote, in that you think you want this thing, whatever it is, and the world at large, the culture's telling you you want XYZ, but then you get XYZ and you're not happy, because actually what you really want is something different, and you haven't actually necessarily explored that which will actually make you feel that you're living a purposeful life, or make you feel fulfilled.
And also it comes down to our attitude to
Keeps coming back to that attitude.
the life that we've got and how we view things, our self-talk, the story that we're telling ourselves about our life. If you tell yourself my life is good, if you tell yourself that I've got all these blessings and all this stuff to be happy about, and we actually we'll start to feel better about our own lives.
So are we saying that the answer is affirmations? Everyone should be chanting their affirmations every morning.
Well, no, it's not going to work if you're sick and you wake up in the morning feeling absolutely awful and say, oh, I love having a cold. No amount of affirmations is going to make a cold a pleasant experience.
I also think the idea of affirmations kind of misses the point in a way, in that affirmations, to me, is a little bit like us trying to control the world outside instead of us adapting to reality. And one of my issues with the idea of affirmations is that it kind of assumes that you can change the world just simply by
Thinking positive
thoughts. Whereas what we're talking about, change your picture, change your life, is that we're adapting ourselves to the reality that we find ourselves in. So to put it in a bit more of a pithy way, you can go out and swim at a surf beach, and you can thrash about and try and fight things and tire yourself out, or you can just go with it. So you can rage against the sea, or you can roll with the waves. And what we're really talking about is thinking smarter rather than trying to force reality to suit your will. You're trying to be smarter and utilize reality and change your behavior so that you expend less energy to get to the place that you want to be.
Also, if we change how we think about things, it'll change how we behave.
Yes.
And that will build the future that we want to see. So rather than going out from trying to do it in reverse order of I'm going to change the world, which is a thing that we are taught, is that you're supposed to want to go up to change the world, right?
Leave the world a better place.
Well, sure, but you can't say I'm going to change the world. That's a huge amount of pressure to put on somebody.
Massive.
And you can't change the world by yourself. All you can do is look at yourself and your own behaviour. So rather than doing it back to front of changing the world and then, we'll be happy with the life we've got, we want to change our picture, change how we view our lives, and that will change our lives.
This kind of fits in very well with the BBC model that we've talked about before.
How to win the culture wars.
It is how to win the culture wars. You change your belief, which then changes your behaviour, and that leads to a change in culture, because
culture is a summation of behaviour across a society. Everybody's behaviour together creates the culture. And so if we're all living these lives of gratitude and really focusing on looking after our communities, we're going to end up with a different sort of culture. And there's a lot of noise that goes on in the public sphere, on social media particularly, on news. There's a lot of noise that's going on, and people talking and worrying and catastrophizing. And my thought is that if we stop listening, then how is what they're saying going to affect us.
It's not.
It's a case of, if the tree falls in the forest with no one to hear it, does it still make a sound?
Yes. Yes, so all of their catastrophizing, all of their trying to control and manipulate is for nothing if nobody's playing their game, if no one's listening.
And I think it can even happen with commentators who might be on what we would consider our side of the argument or the political spectrum or the issue, whatever it is, talking about things that you can't affect too much actually isn't helpful.
I think the key thing is we need to focus on the good and the beautiful and the true. And we need to keep the craziness of the world outside at bay on the periphery.
I'd like to end with a little poem. It goes, "You should not let them get inside your head. It is a place that they cannot control. And you can fill your life with good instead. A place that feeds, nurtures, restores the soul."
Thank you for joining us for this Considered Opinions podcast. We look forward to seeing you again next time, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe.